Alrighty, guys. As you can tell by the beginning of this video, and if you follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and probably from the thumbnail of this video, I hurt myself again. This time I hurt myself on my bike. I went for a long training ride. I had a really good time until the moment where I crashed, and you saw that moment in the beginning. I'm going to walk you through the entire training ride and the crash, give you an update on my condition. I went to the emergency room this morning, but before I do that, I don't want to spoil the beginning of my ride. This is only going to be about 30 to 45 seconds, and then I'll be right back. But I don't want to talk over this part where I ride over this bridge in Dublin. This is a suspension bridge that goes over the Scioto River in Dublin, Ohio. This is how I get from being in town to crossing the river in a place where I can go out in the country and log some real miles. So before you get to hear my story, you have to watch this little segment where I'm crossing this bridge. Enjoy. Like that. Alrighty, so I don't know where exactly I cut this off. I'm doing this on the fly, but that is going to be my jumping off point for the majority of my rides going into this riding season, if I'm going to have a riding season at all. You guys know that I've been riding my bike, preparing to ride in Pelotonia. That's occurring in August. That is 3 months from now, right? Yeah, it's just a hair under 3 months. August the 5th is the day of the ride. At the time of this recording, it is May the 13th. So I have a little over 2.5 months left to train for Pelotonia, where I'm going to be riding. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do the 2-day ride, where it's 101 miles on the first day, 87 miles on the second day. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but behind me, you should be looking at my ride. I decided I had my GoPro with me. Obviously, you saw in the beginning that I recorded my crash. I recorded like 45 minutes worth of my ride. Instead of just recording it flat out, I had it down under the handlebars. I would just reach over and hit record, ride for a little while, and then turn it off. And if I saw some pretty country, I would turn it back on. And then I came home and I edited it down to 20 some minutes or so. I figured I would have that on in the background for you guys while I'm talking about my ride and my crash. I don't know. I love riding my bike. This might sound a little bit corny, but when I grew up, I used to do a lot of hiking and backpacking and stuff like that. When you are backpacking, particularly, something I did, I used to go out west and go in the mountains. You start on flat ground and you start walking towards this mountain. That mountain might be 4 miles away, 5 miles away. You're walking and it's like you're not getting closer. And then all of a sudden you're on the mountain, you don't know how you got there. My backpacking days, we would typically walk between 8 and 12 miles per day. That was a pretty good day of backpacking in the mountains, especially when I was a juvenile. You do get to cross some pretty country, but it takes a very long time. Like you're looking at that ridge line, and that is your goal for the day. Then you make that ridge line. You don't get to see a lot of different stuff, if that makes any sense. And then if you're running, well, you can only run for so long. Running is like a high impact thing. I'm not a fan of running. I don't like running. And you're not going to cover 10, 12 miles a day every single day if you're out running. On a bike, I can go out on my bike and I can actually, it's not a big deal for me to ride 50 miles in one training ride without stopping. I bring enough food and water with me on the bike that I can actually cover 50 miles. The ride that I took yesterday it turned out to be a 44-mile ride. It was supposed to be a 39-mile ride. I use an app on my phone called Strava. I can actually pull it up for you. It's really neat if you guys don't use Strava. You know what? I don't want to show my location on here. But what you can do on Strava is you can actually tell it, hey, I want to do this long of a ride. And it'll pick your location where you currently are, and it'll give you a route. And then it actually will sync into the computer on your bicycle. And you can do like turn-by-turn directions on your bike using I have a Garmin head unit, so it's all GPS, and I can just go. So I don't even necessarily know where I'm at when I'm out riding, but it takes me like way out in the country. So I can go from being in the city to riding through farm fields to being in multiple counties in one day, multiple cities in one day. I really enjoy it. You're going slow enough that you can take in the world around you, but you're also going fast enough that the scenery is going to change. Another neat thing about Strava when it plans a route is it will actually take you through a combination of city streets, bicycle trails, country roads, and everything in between, if there is such a thing. And it'll plan your route based on where other people have ridden. So it'll kind of be like, here's a segment where people usually ride, here's a segment where people usually ride, and then it'll find roads that connect the dots and take you around. So that is what I did yesterday for what was supposed to be a 39-mile ride. Turned into a 44-mile ride, which you'll see later on in the video behind me. I put some text up on the screen and I put a picture of the map up. You can see where I got lost at one point in time because I was going from a bicycle trail to a road, and sometimes you have to come off the trail and make like a hard left or a hard right, and on the bike computer it's hard to tell if it's putting you back on a bike trail again or if it's putting you out onto the main road. And then if you're coming off of a bike trail and there's a bike trail that continues, but you also have a four-way intersection in the road, that gets a little bit confusing. So you'll see, I did like a whole cloverleaf. I kept riding, turn around, riding, turn around, riding, turn around. It was a little bit frustrating, but at the same time, I was okay with it because the whole reason I was out there is because I wanted to ride and I wanted to log some miles. And it was pretty country. There wasn't a lot of traffic out there, so I really enjoyed it. This particular ride took me from Dublin out through Dublin, Jerome Farms, place I'd never been to before, all the way up into Delaware County where I got onto Route 42. I mean, it was a pretty drive. I really enjoyed it. Got to drive through some farmland. There was a one point in time, I don't think it shows up on the video. I think I might have clipped it out, and you can't see it on the GoPro anyway. There was actually some people sitting out on a swing under a tree watching me ride by. I don't know. I enjoy it. So let's see. I guess you guys want to hear about my bike crash. So the crash that happened, it's going to happen in the tail end of this video. So I don't know how long I'm going to yammer on. I already showed you a little clip of the crash in the beginning. I showed it to you in slow motion. You can see it in real speed here in a little bit. But yeah, I was riding. I had the GoPro mounted underneath the handlebars, and at the time of the crash, I didn't even know I had the GoPro on. I guess I'll get to that in a minute. But I had been riding out in the country for the majority of my ride, and one thing that I've been trying to do during my training rides is actually slow down a little bit. I have a tendency to go out and ride hard. I can hold on a flat with no wind, I can hold 22 miles an hour for an hour pretty easily. Not easily. I can hold 22 miles an hour on a flat with no wind. That's kind of like my riding ability. I have a tendency to ride at near the top end of my riding ability at all times, because I will just be riding. I'll look down at the speedometer, and I'll be doing 16 miles an hour. That's not good enough for me, so I'll push it up to 18. Even on hills, even into a headwind, I ride really hard. So one thing that I've been focusing on when I'm out riding lately is just slowing down, not being so competitive with myself, bringing that heart rate down for long periods of time. My goal for yesterday's ride was to be about 2.5 hours at a zone 2 ride. I probably zone 2 into zone 3, borderline on threshold, but I want to try to keep it above my threshold heart rate. So I'd been riding along all day at a comfortable pace, I guess you could say, and I was doing a real good job. I was proud of myself. I was enjoying it. You can see the country around me. It was good times. But then I made a turn and I got into more, I was getting closer to the city. So I had some roundabouts that I was going through. Traffic was getting a little bit heavier. I was trying to stay on the right side of the road, stay as close to the line as possible if there is a line. If there's not a line, I just try to stay close. But I also give myself enough wiggle room so if there's a large rock or a pothole or something, I can get around that. But I try to stay out of traffic as much as possible, try to be as respectful as possible to the cars around me. When I was out in the country and I was able to ride slow and I get into the city, more closer to the city, more traffic starts to build around me. And when I have traffic around me, that's when I tend to just put my head down and start pedaling hard. This happened up in Powell, Ohio. I'll put it up on the screen. And it's kind of funny. There's something else that I've got a screenshot as well. I'm going to add all this stuff in post instead of doing it right here. But yeah, I'm on the Liberty Road in Powell heading southbound. So I know I'm coming down the home stretch. I was 34 miles into my ride at that point in time. And there was a lot of traffic around me. It was congested. I was getting into traffic lights and stuff. When that happens, I start to crank it up. So I was riding hard and I had a slight tailwind, slight downhill, except for these railroad tracks that I was coming up to. So I was, gritting my teeth, pedaling hard. I was actually doing about 25 miles an hour. I'm doing 25 miles an hour. I know these railroad tracks are coming up because you have plenty of warning on a bicycle. You have the railroad sign, and then it's like another 30 seconds. There's another railroad sign, and then you see the embankment, and you can see where the tracks are, coming from. These ones were at an angle. Typically, when you're on a bike, you want to hit the tracks as much of a 90-degree angle as possible. When you hit tracks at an angle and you're going straight, your wheel can get sucked into that line made by the tracks. When your wheel goes sideways and all your momentum is going forward, you go over the bike. That's what happened to me. The reason that it happened, typically what will happen is if I'm coming down a road and I see some angular railroad tracks, I'll get more into the center of the road. I'll turn my wheels perpendicular to the tracks, hit them perpendicular, and then go. The problem is there was a lot of cars around me. I didn't want to be that asshole bicyclist that I hear about all the time by pulling out in the middle of the road and stopping all of these cars. So I tried to stay as close to the edge of the road as possible and then turn my handlebars at the last second. The problem is it was a double set of railroad tracks. So you had track. And I was already pretty close to the edge of the road. I hit the first set of the tracks. I was able to turn my wheels. The second set of tracks, I was not able to turn my wheels, and it happens really fast. I'll have to watch it again a few times myself, but there's even a chance, I feel like such an idiot, that as I hit these tracks, the tracks are angled this way, that I actually turned my wheel slightly, and what happened is my wheel just caught, I went end over end. Very much like the situation with the dogs, when this kind of thing happens, the world slows down. Immediately before my wheel got sucked into that railroad track, I saw it coming, and I wasn't happy. I knew it was going to be bad. I think actually, because if you look at my hands, I actually scraped the skin off my hands, and that is, I just got out of the shower. That is incredibly painful. It just peels the skin off my fingers, and it's just like the upper layer of skin, so there's still skin there. It's not bleeding, it's just like it peeled it off. It hurts. It hurts a lot. It burns and it stings. I think when I went over, I don't know how it happened. Okay, so my wheel turned this way, and it automatically sent me this way. You can see all the all the rug. I've got road rash all over my arm. I actually have road rash up here and onto my chest as well. It didn't tear my shirt, but the cycling gear that you wear, I'll put a picture of that up too, is a pretty thin material. When you're going 25 miles an hour and you hit the road, it tends to do bad things to your body. I was wearing a helmet. I'm not going to go get my helmet. I'm not going to post any pictures of it, but it does have some scratches. It doesn't have any gashes or anything, but it has some scratches on the side. So I think what happened was I started to go down this way. I let go of my handlebar with this hand, and I just grabbed my body like this. Like I brought my hands into my chest. I used to ride motorcycles, and I've wiped out before on motorcycles. When I literally first got my first bike, it was a Suzuki GSX-R 600 back in 2000. I think it was 2000 or 2001 when I got this bike. No, it was summer of 2001 because it was right before 9/11. I had never ridden a motorcycle like that before at all. My buddy takes me out in the country. He's an accomplished rider. He was a dumbass. Took me out on some country roads. Took these corners, these sweeping bends a little bit too hard for somebody at my level. And I ended up laying down the bike multiple times, doing like 45, 50 miles an hour. So I'm aware of road rash and how you get road rash. And I've done this many times where I've actually slid down the road on my forearms like this, and I've just destroyed my forearms. I remember when I was in the Army having to go to the field for like a week or 2 weeks with gauze wrapped around my arms. And I remember also hiding that from my chain of command because we were wearing long sleeves, and when you're out in the field, you don't roll up your sleeves. So I just had my sleeves down at all times, and I would secretly go to the medics and they would change my dressings for me. But that's a story for another day. I've been through that before, and when I hit the ground, that went through my mind. I was like, don't go sliding on the ground like that and get all that road rash. So what I decided to do was to tuck. And when I tucked, I remember rolling end over end on the side of the road, which the camera doesn't pick up, but trust me, it happened. But when I initially hit the ground, I don't know. I can't tell you how it happened, but I hit with this. I hit my right knee. I'll show you guys pictures of my right knee. I skinned my knee, and I went sliding off the road, picked up my bike. My levers, that, you know, my shifters, my brake levers and my shifters are all up here. They were bent in. Luckily, I was able to just kind of pull them, and I got them back straight again. They're a little scratched up, but they appear to work. Checked my bike out, made sure everything was all right, took a drink of water. And then it was funny. I got on the bike, I looked down at the camera, and I didn't know it was recording at the time. I hit the button thinking, well, I'm going to record from here on out and go. And I honestly, I didn't think I was really that banged up. I thought I was just scratched up a little bit. You know, I've had road rash before. When I was a kid, I used to wreck my bike almost every day. You know, it's not a big deal. I was constantly picking scabs off of my arms and legs when I was a kid. I remember my calves. I used to always like slide my bike, and it seems like my calves always got stuck under the bike, and I've burned them off so many freaking times in my life. This is not a big deal to me. So I rode over to my in-laws' house. My wife and kids are over there right now. There's a yard sale going on, so I rode over to visit them and to say hi. I was going to do that regardless if I got hurt. And then I just got back on the bike and rode home. I probably still had another 8 to 10 miles to go. And I was able to complete that ride even though a thunderstorm broke out, which thunderstorm is not a lot of fun to ride home in. I did see thunder and lightning and all that. My sunglasses got so filled with water and dirt and stuff that I had to take them off. I took off my sunglasses and stuck them in my pocket. I rode home, came into the house through the garage, stripped down naked in the garage, and came in the house and ordered a pizza. That's when everything started to set in. The pain started to set in. My knee was hurting a lot. My hand, this is one of the most painful things on me. this stuff all burns. It burns on my chest. My hip hurts a little bit. My shoulder hurts a little bit. My neck actually hurts, and my spine hurts a little bit. Everything just hurts. I had a really hard time falling asleep last night. I kept waking up because of my knee was in so much pain. I bandaged it and wrapped it pretty tight, but it was still in a lot of pain. It kept waking me up. I went to the emergency room this morning, and the doctors think that I'm going to be pretty much okay. I've actually got an x-ray of my elbow. I'll show you guys. I have bone spurs, and when you do something like this, you might chip off a piece of bone. So I have a nice piece of bone floating in my elbow right now. That's really fun for people to look at. My knee itself is really swollen. I've got some pictures of it. I don't know if the pictures really do it justice, but there's quite a bit of swelling in my knee. He thinks that it might just be a bursa sac, and he was manipulating my leg around. He was holding onto my foot and my heel, kind of pushing, pulling, twisting, doing all those things. I can lift my leg. I can straighten my leg. I just can't bend my leg. At least not bend it very far. And it's really swollen. It's like, usually you can see my quads come down, and then it gets really small where my knee is, and then it starts to fan back out under my calves. It's not doing that right now. It just looks like a hot dog going down, just a big fat leg. So it's really, really swollen. But we don't, at least early indications are that I don't appear to have any torn ligaments or tendons or anything like that. I am going to have a follow-up with an orthopedic doctor just to make sure, probably get an MRI on it. But fingers crossed, I'm just going to keep it iced. There's ice on it right now. Keep taking my ibuprofen, get a little bit of rest. Hopefully after 2 or 3 days, the swelling goes down enough that I can get back on my indoor trainer. Probably going to be a few weeks before I get outside, but if I can just do 3 days of easy 2 to 3 hour rides in the house for the next couple of weeks, I won't lose any conditioning, and I'll still be able to get in shape enough to ride for the Pelotonia event, which is what I've been training for this entire time. I don't know, I've rambled on enough. I'm looking at the clock on my computer. I think the crash is coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and get off. I'm just going to let you guys listen to the road sound and everything for the last couple minutes of my bike. And then I already did a little voiceover for the last minute and a half of the video. So thanks for hanging out and watching me. I'm sorry that I went out and got myself hurt again. But I promise I will be able to get back on my bike in time to ride in Pelotonia and take full advantage of all the money you guys donated for the cause. So thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of the video. I'll talk to you guys later.
Ooh.